Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Cory, and now the Sharks want to start winning games, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. Welcome back, everyone, or perhaps welcome for the very first time. If you're just tuning in now, this is episode 26. Where the heck have you been? But we've realized that we posted something that people really liked. Really liked so much, in fact, that I think as of today, it's over 16,000 views on Instagram with over 1,000 likes and almost 500 shares. And it helped our follower counts almost hit over 100. So hopefully by the time you're hearing this, we've eclipsed 100 followers on our podcast Instagram account. And if you're one of those new followers who are tuning in for the very first time, well, it's good to see you, good to hear from you, and thanks a lot, honestly.
Great to have you with us. Better late than never, and we hope you enjoy it. And yeah, but whether next time, we're great to have you all here with us, and glad we can bring you some content tonight that's refreshing.
That is right, Dom. And for some reason, you cut out right as you were trying to get into your statement. So I'm going to let you say that one more time.
Well, it's excited to have everyone here, whether it's your first time or your 26th. And yeah, we've got some exciting content to bring you. The Sharks how to win, and yeah, we're ready for the playoff time. So getting ready for that. And I know Cory has some questions that I have not yet heard. So I'm excited to join you all along the ride and go off the cuff with something fresh.
For those of you who this is your very first episode, I like to spring traps on Dom. I always like to keep him prepared. He's never.
And I like a good challenge.
Oh, never mind. I guess he likes it, but you know, because he's weird like that. But if you're someone who's been with us since episode 1, and if you have listened to every episode since then, first of all, what is wrong with you? Second of all, I love you. But for those of us, since I feel like we might have a lot of new folks tuning in for the very first time, who the heck am I? I'm Captain Avalanche Cory, your resident Avs guy. I know a lot about the Colorado Avalanche. I love the Colorado Avalanche, and I love the game of hockey, and well, you know, my co-host with his introduction, I'll let him tell you a bit about himself. But for me, even though we're in episode 26, just for a refresher, I've been watching the Avalanche really since their worst season. Wow, that sounded horrible. Since their worst season on record, 2016-17, that's when I really started to uncover my love for hockey. And now here I am 10 years later, and I can talk about the Avs for 2 hours on end every week and probably more. So if you ever run into me in public and you talk about hockey with me, not just the Avs, you better watch out, because that's pretty much all our conversation will be. But this is the Captain Avalanche Fancast. We talk about the Avs here. But of course, I would be nothing, truly nothing, without my incredible co-host and resident of San Jose, California, although he's not there now. He's here in lovely Colorado with me. Dom from the tank, everyone. Dom, who the heck are you?
Well, thank you, Cory. As you said, I am Dom from the tank. May not be in the realm of the tank anymore out in San Jose, but hailing originally from Northern California, I have been watching the Sharks as a loyal, diehard fan since the ripe age of 8 years old. For those of you who've been listening, you know that tallies up to 17 years now of hockey watching, so I might not be as active year in and year out as Cory is, balancing the other areas of my life, but I've always been a fan of the game. My family are all big fans of the game, and I appreciate that Cory invited me to join him here, because for those of you just joining us, Cory and I actually met in our dorm during college, and it was our mutual love of hockey that built, as one might guess now, a long-lasting and very close friendship that I'm particularly grateful for, and has helped even rejuvenate my love of the game. So I hope that our mutual love of the game comes through and can have a positive impact on all of you.
Pretty much took the words right out of my mouth, to be honest with you, Dom. And that's our goal here at the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Not only have we reinvigorated our own loves of hockey, although I don't know if mine needed more vigorating. It's pretty much as vigorated as it can be. But if you're a new fan to hockey or an old fan to hockey, we want to show you that this is the greatest sport on earth, that hockey is for everyone, and to help you understand and grow your love of the game with insightful and sometimes goofy analysis of our favorite teams, in this case, that being the Colorado Avalanche and the San Jose Sharks. We like to talk about the NHL in general, but of course, that's the main focus of this podcast. First and foremost, the Colorado Avalanche, and then, of course, the nice San Jose Sharks, who I promise you are on the rise. They will be good one day, but it's also fun to talk about teams at the bottom as it is the teams at the top. You might not think that's the case, but you'd be surprised. I think we've came up with some pretty interesting and insightful analysis to watch our baby little Sharks grow. No pun intended to the song there, but without further ado, I think we will jump right into it straight away. But otherwise, if you like what we're doing here and you hit follow on that Instagram, definitely hit follow on Spotify or whatever other platform you are listening on. Leave us a comment on what you want to know about hockey. We definitely want to answer your questions because sometimes it's learning moments for us as well. We certainly don't know everything about hockey, and we're kind of always eager to learn more, wouldn't you say, Dom?
Oh, certainly we want to learn more. Very eager, as you put it, Cory. And we're still new at this. We haven't even done a full season yet. This is episode 26, and that might sound like a lot to some people, but that's over the span of 26 weeks. So here we are at half a year that we've been doing this. Can you believe that, Cory? How about that little milestone for us? So while that is a big milestone for us here at the Captain Avalanche Fancast, this is still a very new thing, and we're hoping to evolve and continue to improve as we go into the playoffs and look ahead to next year as well. So any ideas, any thoughts, anything you want to share? And hey, who knows? Maybe someday we'll be able to get to a point where we can invite guests who want to have something to say or ask questions in real time. So who knows where this can go, but we can't get there without having some guidance from you all on where you would like to see it go. So do please give that like, give that follow, give those comments so that we can improve and give you better content, because that's what we really want to do. We want our love of hockey to reflect things that also are beneficial to you as the listener.
Yeah, I think that pretty much hits the nail on the head. So what do we do here? We talk about the Colorado Avalanche, we talk about hockey, but we often do it in goofier ways. Unfortunately, we don't have something fun like Hockey Court planned for you this week, but a few episodes ago, I did something called the 5 stages of Avalanche. So with the Avalanche's recent play, where, I guess to preface, I grieved about the current state of my hockey team. Despite them being in a playoff spot, I think there was a lot to have grief over. So with their recent play throughout this month of March, and obviously we're on a week-by-week basis, so this most recent stretch of games here, I kind of not necessarily revisited that, but created some new observations and connected them to our recent games that the Avalanche have been playing both on the road and at home. So let's talk about it, shall we?
Yes, please do. Take us away.
Everyone is scoring. I write down I write down my sound effects, everybody. I gotta know when to add the dramatic effects. Okay, I'm gonna cut that out. You don't need to know that. So some of you yeah, Dom.
Even if they do know that, listeners, yeah, we're still learning. And Cory tries to add fun sound effects and make it fun, like you guys might have all heard him say here about being fun. So if we have an occasional pause, that's just because Cory's going to make it better for you all and add some sound effects that I don't know. It's beyond me what he does behind the scenes. So credit to him there. But yeah, come with us for the ride, and it'll have its ups, its downs, its lulls. We'll have water breaks, and we encourage you, if you hear a lull in the action, to drink some water. Take care of yourself. These episodes are long. Whether you're listening, like obviously, if you are listening on your commute and driving, please do so responsibly when you drink your water. But otherwise, if you are just sitting at your desk, if you're at home, if you're laying in bed, just take a sip of water when you hear us take a pause, because that's what we're doing, and we want you to take care of yourselves.
Tom's looking out for all of you, everyone. And to say I make it better is subjective for sure, but I do something with it. So, as I was already mentioning, that some of you may recall that in a previous episode, I was very critical and somber of the Avs' depth and their ability to score. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go and listen to that 5 stages of Avalanche episode that I talked about from a few weeks back, because directly after that episode aired, the depth for the Avalanche not only had a great week, but then got a boost through the trade deadline, and not only have been rolling on the river, but have been the very reason the Avalanche have won some of their games, particularly on the road. In the month of March, up to this point, the Avalanche have scored 46 goals across all situations. The bottom six has scored 9 of those goals and gotten 14 assists for a total of 23 points across a month where the Avalanche have only lost 2 games. This number may not seem like an improvement, but the depth truly is more noticeable. For example, in the game against Calgary, the big boys had a hard time getting going, but Parker Kelly stepped in and essentially won the game for the Avalanche with 2 timely goals. The third line of Colton, Coyle, and Kivi Ranta doesn't always score, but they are noticeable out there on a nightly basis with grit and grind. Colton himself has surged, getting 7 points in the month of March and assisting on many of the goals Kivi Ranta scores. Cohesion, and really that chemistry and consistency that we're talking about. I think Jared Bednar has found the magic formula with that third line especially. Colton, Coyle, and Kivi Ranta are just magic together. They are the grind line. And what's hilarious is they'll get down there, they'll smash you against the wall. Suddenly the puck is up ice and in your net. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I mean, they've strung together, I think I talked about it last week, some of my favorite sequences that the Avalanche have played recently. This line is so fun to watch every time it's deployed. And it's so nice that when your third line gets on the ice, you're not sweating because it's not a liability to get out there anymore. You know that it's going to go out there and do some fucking damage. Now, not every play by the lower line needs to result in that goal, but it helps when your lower guys are out there not only creating at least chances for themselves, but also taking away and limiting chances from the opponents. And that's what they're doing right now. The numbers I mentioned don't also include the increased scoring and production from the defensive side as well. The D-men, including Cale Makar, because of course he's still a D-man, have scored 9 goals of their own and have accumulated 34 points.
Well, I mean, you hit on something very important there, and it's that depth scoring, yes, while significant, it's also not just the most important part of being a depth role player and contributing on the ice. If they are playing consistent defense, being hard on the forecheck, hard pressure, making it harder, less enjoyable for the opposing team, making it difficult for them to get possession, to get good chances, you're running out clock that way. You're making it harder if they can match up well against a higher line for another team. They are taking away opportunities. They are building momentum for the Avalanche, even if they aren't showing up on the stat sheet every night. And that's huge. That is a huge part of the game that maybe goes unrecognized. You have the third line and especially the fourth line grinders who go out there to be physical, to play defense, to effectively not give up a goal as opposed to being the ones responsible for the highlight reel goals. And when they score, it is a welcome addition, a welcome surprise, but you're paying them to go out there, be physical, and make it harder on the other team rather than easier on your team. It happens naturally to make your team easy, your life easier, but it really is the focus on making the other team's life harder.
Exactly. And hockey is a game that, of course, you win by scoring goals, but a lot of people don't realize that sometimes, even in those lower scoring games, that it's truly art on ice, where even if you're not seeing your big boys scoring a lot of goals, sometimes a great shift from those lower lines, even if it doesn't result in that goal, looks so good. And it shows you maybe who has momentum in the game, even if nobody's scoring. It shows you who might be breaking through first, or who's going to be the one to break the ice on the game. So even though they're not the ones who are out there to be flashy, they're still the ones that are sometimes going to get you the win and what are most critical in a big playoff push. Although I think I mentioned that here a little later, so I'll hold off on that. But more on the defensemen. With those 34 points, that's 25 assists, meaning that they are greatly assisting, no pun intended, driving the play for the boys up front. And this is just in the month of March. Sam Malinsky was challenged to step up his quality of play, and he's met that challenge with not only excellent defensive work, but by contributing offensively to help his team win. Then newcomers like Ryan Lindgren do a superb job getting pucks either deep towards the net or on the back wall, so guys can go and win board battles and pick up points here, and he then picks up points here and there. Speaking of newcomers, Big Cock Brock is doing exactly what he was brought in to do with the Avs, and he's scoring and contributing, and we'll talk about him more here in an upcoming note. The point here And the biggest difference between then and now is the depth is noticeable and they are showing up on a nightly basis. The key is when the big boys can't get it done, Jared Bednar, the team, the fans can rely on the depth to show up and do so, to show up. I anticipate that some of these guys like Yoel Kiviranta, who's having a career year and could hit 20 goals, which is far past his previous totals, are primed to have a massive playoffs. And I mean, Dom, wouldn't you agree that there's always like for teams that go deep, there's always a random player, it feels like, role guy on their team who just shows up in the playoffs?
Absolutely. You have those breakout players who have their season of their career, and it's fitting for a guy like Kiviranta, who he might come up more later tonight, but who is in a contract year as an unrestricted free agent. He has this great shot. The Avs are going to be charging towards the playoffs here. There's no better time for him to be playing his best hockey when he's in the groove and things are coming up his way. And that's how these Stanley Cup teams win. It is about depth. It is the hardest trophy to win. And if you've been listening to us for a long time, you've heard us say that. And that's why we don't see a lot of back-to-back or repeat champions. And it does take those role players, those guys who are on the third line, on the fourth line, just stepping up in the big moments and getting hot at the right time.
Pineapple. Eat your fruit, everybody. Here's something crazy for you. Yoel Kiviranta was a PTO player. Is that not something? And he's played so well this year that he's even been elevated to the first line at points. Not that that's necessarily to his strength, but he has definitely played some strong ass hockey. But he was a PTO player. And for those who don't know, PTO stands for professional tryout. A lot of players, especially older players or more role players like Yoel Kiviranta is, they'll be on a team for a little while, but they are guys who are unfortunately sometimes easily replaced, and so they're not picked up in free agency. And so it's up to them to go out there to other teams' training camps and earn that professional tryout. And Kiviranta has showed up and put on a strong argument as to why he should be on this team multiple years in a row now. He's been rewarded with multiple one-year deals. And at this point, I think it's time for the Avs to admit that he's probably a guy that belongs on this team. So you hope that they extend him for, as Dom would say, extend for reasonable. I have not forgotten that. That was really funny in the context of what we were talking about. But I love Yoel Kiviranta. His name is, first of all, fun to say, but he's a great player. And having him against Dallas, for those who know the lore, is going to be pretty great. But to keep it rolling here, but that's the key. You don't want to be overly reliant on not only just let me back it up here. This is the key, that you don't have to be overly reliant not only on just your top six, but excuse me, holy shit, it felt like just the top line for a while for the Avs, that's who they had to turn to every night. But now every line can contribute in multiple ways, and it takes immense strain off the big boys, which is utterly crucial for the playoffs. And just like we said, it's something you need to go deep, and something that the Avs have admittedly lacked for a few seasons now.
Certainly, but this is also what the Avalanche had in their cup run, was they had the depth,
yes.
And we've talked about it, where any line could score at any given moment. It was terrifying, a bad matchup for any team out there. And when you have guys like Kiviranta able to play on your third line, guys like Jonathan Drouin, these are people who can step up and who can on other teams be playing higher up the lines. And so for the Avs to be able to throw them out there as their third line, and as you put it, make the opposing team's life a bit miserable and turn a puck in their own corner into a puck in the opposing team's net, that is something that is hard to contend with, and it's an intangible factor that can't always be quantified in any one stat when you're trying to recognize what line someone's playing and if they're over or underplaying their expectations. And I know, Cory, you've talked about some stats before, but trying to quantify the value of that can sometimes be difficult. So I hope for those listening, it comes off clear how much of an impact that can make, because everybody knows that your top lines are where the cream of the crop is. That's where you're getting most of your goals from. That's what you need to succeed. But deep and have sustained success, that's where the depth comes in.
And that's why this trade deadline, and why I'm talking about it now, has been so successful for the Avalanche, because yeah, they're maybe not necessarily scoring more than when we talked about it before, even though I think they most certainly are if I go and compare notes here.
I think they are.
The eye test also lends to the fact that they are just actively doing more because you now actually have guys where they are supposed to be. We're not elevating third and fourth line guys to the second and sometimes first lines. These guys are trained and designed to succeed and excel on those lower lines with those limited minutes. So even if they're great on those lines, that doesn't always translate to being good on those upper lines. Not that they necessarily didn't perform admirably, but when you have guys like that where they are supposed to be, it leads to a more complete team, which is with the eye test. Again, yeah, looking away from the stats, that's what we're seeing with this Avalanche team right now. And I think we'll get into it across some of my other notes here. But if you are a stats guy like me, and I love numbers, the power play is devastating. There was a time that the Avalanche's power play was operating at a mere 9%. It wasn't just bad, it was downright abysmal. It was genuinely better for this team to be 5-on-5 than it was for them to have a man advantage. This has changed significantly. In March, the Avalanche's power play is currently operating at 41.4%. That's better than teams like the Jets, who are only at 23.3% in March, the Capitals, who are only at 7.4%, and just assume that every number I tell you is talking about here in the month of March. The Oilers are at 28.6%, the Red Wings are at 27.6%, and the only team in my list of comparables that are doing better than the Avs on the power play are the Knights at 42.3%, so an extra 0.9%. This performance has led the Avs to having a top 10 power play in the league at 25.1%. And to remind you, it was in the bottom half at one point, around the 25 or 25th ranked at one point. So it's improved.
When we talk about, very much improved. But I think when we talk about the Avalanche, their top power play unit, when you have Makar and McKinnon out there, if you didn't watch the Four Nations and weren't with us on the podcast when we were talking about it, you should kind of look up that best power play in history. But the fact is that you had two of those players on your power play on a nightly basis. And not to mention at the time, now with Nichis and how he plays with McKinnon when they're out there together, it's gotten a lot better since the trade deadline, but not just your top line. Everybody's top power play line is where they're going to score more of their power play goals. Your second power play has gotten much better, especially with the addition of guys like Brock Nelson.
Yeah, and it was something that for whatever reason, when I was thinking up this little blurb here that I forgot to mention, I do go on to say it later, and I'll reiterate it again because exactly as you said, it's so critical because whenever the Avalanche's first power play unit couldn't get it done, they would throw in this kind of ragtag second power play unit that also really couldn't get it done. So at that point, it was just like, well, we'll throw them out there. We'll see if they can do something. And they really never could. Now, all of a sudden, you have guys who are made to be on the power play, like Brock Nelson, and suddenly your second power play can also score. And they have. So now it's like, the first unit couldn't get it done. Put the second unit out there. And people are just as afraid. And it's genuinely wonderful because it leads to so many better opportunities for this team to score on the 2 minutes. Because, sometimes the timing's just a little off for those big boys. And they're like, can't do it. So they throw big cock Brock to get it done. And he does. He has.
He certainly has made that step up, and I think filled the role that the Sharks needed him to. So our Sharks, the Avalanche. I'm so excited to talk about the Sharks. My God, this is what happens when I've got my head in the tank, everyone.
See, I can tell that we're trying to be a little bit more poignant for all the new folks here, but it's already falling apart. It's all a facade. It's a ruse. We're not like this normally. We just chat hockey at this point, and I can tell Dom's falling apart already. He's tired from his job, his 9-to-5 job.
And anybody who knows a true 9-to-5 knows it's more like 8-to-6, if not 7-to-7. So
yeah.
Adulting, it's fun, everyone.
But I would be remiss if I talked about the power play and didn't mention that the PK is still pretty good too. As was the Avalanche's penalty kill, which currently sits at 15th in the league. at 78.8%, but this really doesn't do justice to the quality of work that this kill has produced. It's a situation where their first exam grades were so piss poor that it's taken a whole semester to get them back up. And once again, in March, that has actually been down currently. And I'll be transparent with the fact that the Avs PK has let in, 7 goals on 25 attempts and are only operating at 72%. But I'm not really that pressed about the fact because both the 5-on-5 and power play have been so good that it really doesn't matter if the other team gets a power play goal against the Avs because that's close to a third of the goals that teams have managed to actually score on the Avs in March. You take away those goals and teams are barely getting through the Avs at 5-on-5, which speaks highly of their improved defensive structure. Oh, speaking of which, I saw this on Instagram from some like weird, what was it? It was like a privated analysis thing. Hold on. I know I'm saying this like super well, everyone. Give me just a shake here. Okay, here we go. It is, I don't know what type of chances they are referring to, but this is from CSA, ClearSight Analytics. And the Avalanche are currently allowing the fewest chances against per game. My assumption would be they mean like high danger or quality scoring chances, and they are only allowing 10.5 a game, which is better than teams like the Panthers, Jets, Lightning, and Kings.
The Avs are hot right now. They're playing their best hockey at all phases of the ice, even on special teams, like you said. And that's part of when we talk about teams being dangerous in the playoffs. Part of that is being strong at the right time. Maybe if we have enough time, we'll talk about the Blues and their 7-game win streak coming out of nowhere to threaten into the playoff hunt consideration and be a team that nobody wants to see in the first round. So it's as much as any one thing, and you can have these great teams over the course of a season, being at your best at the right time is a huge factor to potential success. And the Avalanche are peaking now as we see coming into the playoff time frame.
Exactly. And I think we will actually have a chance to discuss the Blues. But here comes the Beefmaster segment, everyone. And that's the Avs are destroying some opponents a little too hard. We'll throw in some game analysis here to provide some context, and I promise this will become a criticism and isn't just a glaze fest for how great the Avs have been playing lately. But against Ottawa, the Avs had to survive a tough first 5 minutes in which I expected Ottawa to set the pace. And they're a desperate team that is in that first wildcard spot, but they understand that they need every point to stay ahead in a crazy competitive East. However, after weathering that storm, the Avalanche took full control of the contest and never really let go of their chokehold. And the first alone, the Avs got 4 goals with a crazy one from with the first one being a crazy one from Druin through coverage to a streaking McKinnon who got the shot off through coverage and then through Ullmark. And that's why he's the best in the world. Brock Nelson then gets his first goal as an Av off of a beautiful passing play from Netchus and Malinsky. Cale Makar then whips it with his giga wrist shot on the power play 10 seconds in for goal number 3. This created a multi-point night for Netchus and Druin, already with Cale closing in on 30 goals, and finally Kivi Ranta and the depth tack on their goal. And in fairness to Ullmark, who got yanked before the first even ended, he did still look sharp and had made some impressive saves that could have made the score even higher, but after the night they had in Toronto, the Avs were going to come in with a vengeful game plan against the next opponent. Oh, I realized I somehow had my notes copied incorrectly here, so everybody give me like a hot second to change that. I don't know what the fuck happened there. There we go.
This opportunity to drink your water.
Yeah, take a water break. You know what? I'll take a water break. Here we go. Drink your water, everyone. So it's in the third period here against the Sens where things started to change. The Avs very clearly took their foot off the gas in terms of trying to score. And I mean, why wouldn't you? Your team is already up 5-0. It's all but a shoo-in win. Comebacks like these are considered historic events, and Scott Wedgwood would have to just leave his net for Ottawa to even have a chance. Ottawa, however, gained a few too many additional opportunities from this state of play. And it's not like the Avalanche were being lazy, but the word that I'll use here over and over again is hosting. And they didn't feel that they had a need to continue to dominate every facet of the ice and burn the energy that didn't need to be burned. And this did lead to a poorly taken late penalty by Keaton Middleton, and it broke Scott Wedgwood's shutout. Boo. But this coasting through the third was ultimately inconsequential this game. Unfortunately, the same could not be said against the Habs, who are an even more desperate team than the Sens. Let me take you through the events of the night as they played out. To start, it was disturbingly similar to that of the night. I can't be spooky and mysterious. The events were disturbingly similar to how it started against the Sens, all right? The third line, as I've already mentioned, has been fantastic lately, facilitating plays, whether it's for each other or for the D, who were the goal scorers in the first period with Malinsky and Lindgren. The Avs once again jumped out to that dominant first period. But do you all remember when the first period for the Avs was so bad, it was a consistent source of discussion? We've definitely talked about it here before, but for those who don't know, the Avs were so bad in the first period at the beginning of the season that you could almost reliably count on the fact that they would have 1.5 goals scored on them going into the second. The Avs knew they would be down in the game almost every night. That was mostly because of poor goaltending, but, that's not a problem anymore.
It's not a recipe for winning hockey, though, either way.
It certainly is not. Well, now the first period is a place to fear them, and the third is still their best. But the grind has been real for this team. Now, the Habs did do a good job stopping the bleeding against the Avs, and they even played well during their own power play, but Blackwood stoned Cole Caulfield. Perfect feed across the crease, Cole Caulfield standing on the sideline, near back door, and Mackenzie Blackwood just gets across and gets a glove on the young man. I'm pretty sure I'm older.
Blackwood.
I'm pretty sure I'm older than Cole Caulfield. Hold on. Cole Caulfield age. So I can call him a young.
Isn't it crazy that the stars of the NHL are now younger than us? Whatever happened to us?
I don't know, dude, but I got him beat by a year, so I can call him young man. That's right, Cole, you're a young man to me. Yeah, everyone on the I make myself laugh too much. This is how this goes every night. Everyone on the Avalanche is stepping up to the plate. Everyone is playing their roles, which is critical going forward into this playoff run, as we've already mentioned. The Habs have also been red hot. For those who don't know, they, going into this game, had the best record, where the Avs had the second best record. Record. I did it. You did it last week. I did it this week. Record! Damn it. We got it. It caught up to us. Record, the second best record. Post-trade deadline. So they couldn't, so the Avs, they needed to contain, the Avs needed to contain the Habs because both Dallas and Minnesota had won their games that day. So the Avs could not afford to lose any of their ground and slip. Keep this fact in mind. The second period is where things started to get fiery. Middleton drops the gloves with Arbor Ekash, who is one of the better fighters in the league, and throughout the periods, the Habs would poke and prod and goad all the Avs lines into fights to draw out penalties, and they were admittedly very successful at that, and they continued to do that the entire night. The Avs did get power play opportunities of their own, though, which resulted in a goal that, as I described it, made me erect. Dom, I'd like to share this goal with you. Let's go ahead and get that pulled up because I forgot to have it prepared here. Avs versus Habs power play goal. Let's see if...
Yeah, while you send that over, for anyone who is new to the podcast and new to hockey, the Habs is a nickname used to refer to the Montreal Canadiens. And I'm sure that Cory was erect when thinking about a goal, and Big Cock Brock may or may not have been involved. I'm going to just take a guess.
He was actually not involved on this goal. Shockingly so.
Shocking.
He was involved on a different one later in the night though. But this is it. Don't ask me why it's on Facebook. I don't know.
Seeing it in live time, everyone.
Here we go.
Oh my God. That is how you use a power play. Like, change direction.
Boom, bop,
like,
bam.
Doesn't even have a shot. Oh my God.
Boom, bop, bam. Oh my God.
Tic-tac-toe.
So, for anybody wondering what it is we're jizzing over, I will link the highlights for you in the description of this podcast so you can see it for yourself if you didn't get a chance to. But basically, McKinnon passes it cross crease through to Chushkin to Droon, who passes it backdoor through coverage to Martin Netchis, who is waiting to receive. It's kind of a Mikko Rantanen special, honestly, which Mikko Rantanen loved to just sit backdoor and tuck it in. But it all stemmed from, it really didn't show the full play, just the tic-tac-toe, but yeah, it was about as good as it can get. But thank goodness they did get this goal, because Montreal then got their first of the night right after. And it's very ironic because I noted an aspect of the Avs game as a team. Wow, what am I even trying to say here? An aspect of the Avs as a team's game that has improved greatly is weathering their opponents' pushes. Whenever the opposition strings some good shifts together and gets chances, and that will happen no matter what, the Avs have been able to minimize the damage and keep the opponent contained. Again, I think this is true, but if you watch this game, you will know where this is going. It was at this point that the Habs started to contain the Avs in their own O-zone and were pushing back and gaining momentum. It was small at first, but it was noticeable. We hit the third, which leads to an absolutely unacceptable collapse by this Avs team. They fell apart in their best period. Blackwood was not making saves, and the coverage in front of him broke down. The Avs got cycled to death, and the Habs created plays all around them. And it almost felt like they had an extra player on the ice with how well the Canadiens were moving the puck around. The Avs just looked like they were panicking, and they needed to ensure that they at least got to OT, which they did, but the collapse was just utterly unacceptable. The Canadiens were hot for a reason, and they have everything to play for. This collapse that I'm talking about happened in the final 10 minutes of the third, and there was really not much game to go. The ultimate lesson being that you can't just coast to the end of the game. You need to push the full 60. Coasting will not get you the win in the playoffs, especially when you know you are playing Dallas. The positives.
Can I jump in there really quickly? Because when you say coasting will not work in the playoffs, one, I call it turtling and retreating into your shell, playing a defensive game, and just taking all pressure off of the opponent. So that's one. Just for anyone who's new to join us, when I use the term turtling, this is exactly what I mean. When what the Avs allowed, just basically allowed the Canadiens to walk right back into this game. Part two, at this point in time, the Canadiens are fighting for the last wildcard spot in the East. Every game until the rest of the season for them is a playoff game. Every game is a must-win, do or die, because you might not be able to be in the hunt tomorrow. So anyone who goes into a game against them needs to know that and needs to be playing as if it's a playoff game. And you saw the Avs took a chance. They played. They went off the gas. It's that simple. They took their foot off the gas. So even if they didn't full-blown turtle, they did give the Canadiens an opportunity to take themselves back into the game. And lo and behold, a playoff team, a playoff caliber team in the hunt, did just that. So it's important, I think, for the Avs to learn from this so it doesn't happen again. But anyway, Cory, I just wanted to say that because I know for a lot of these teams that are on the fringe hunt to the playoffs start early for them, and every game until the end of the season is treated like a playoff game.
You are absolutely right. And I do think, first of all, I'll talk about it here in a second, just when I go over the Red Wings game here, but I do think they did learn from it with how they played against the Red Wings. But I disagree with you, Dom. I disagree that this type of coasting that they had done against the Sens and ended up doing against the Habs here was your turtling, because I think you can turtle effectively where you have the lead, but you play a sound defensive game to limit the other team's opportunities. Whereas the Avs were just kind of skating around out there. Again, not necessarily lazy, but just kind of playing out to the end of the clock. Whereas I think about their game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, Game 6, Stanley Cup Final. This is for the Cup. And the Avs get the go-ahead goal. They are ahead 2-1. Yeah, they can maybe score another one, but you don't need to win by 10. You need to win by 1. And so you saw in that final 10 minutes of the third period, if you want to know what the best defensive hockey that has ever happened looks like, go and watch that game. And the final 10 minutes that the Avalanche had against Tampa Bay, who had won 2 Stanley Cups back-to-back before this, mind you, and we're on the verge of three-peating, it is the best defensive hockey ever. And I think that's a good example of still you're turtling there, but you are turtling effectively. The Avs were not turtling effectively against the Canadiens.
Well, and that's a fair point. I think in general with turtling, and there are different forms and there are different degrees of effort maybe that we could say. I think when I say turtling, though, it is an entirely defensive strategy. It is prey. It is using a shield and not a sword. So I guess there can be various interpretations, and you're right. I think there's absolutely degrees of turtling, and that instance was some absolutely immaculate defense, and there's multiple schools of thought. Some say, yes, you only need to win by 1, and so you certainly don't want to open yourself up to a defensive lapse. Others say you need to at least keep the pressure on some and be sound defensively, like you said, but not stop shooting, not stop putting pressure in a forecheck, so as to not let your opponent dominate possession, get into their rhythm, their cycle, and make it more difficult for you to play defense. Give your opponent more chances just by giving them the puck more. And so I think there's ultimately a balance of playing sound defense and keeping that notion there. I completely agree, without letting your opponent dominate puck possession and have quality opportunities come as a result.
Exactly. And I mean, I really just, I don't see what the Avs did against the Habs fitting your definition of turtling, because it doesn't feel like they were trying to play that more defensive style game. Again, they were just kind of playing. They were in both zones, maybe getting a few chances here and there, but once the Habs really started to push back, that's where it really all started to fall apart. And if they would have locked it down like they've been able to do as of late, I don't think it would have been an issue. Now, the positive of all of this is that the Avs still pulled out the win, thanks to Big Cock Brock. But the extra steps to get there were completely unnecessary. The Avalanche themselves have really been white hot with one of the best records since the trade deadline and really in March, as we mentioned, which is great. But as we just discussed, can lead to some complacency in their play, and that can put them in dangerous situations. Once you're in the playoffs, points don't matter. It's who wins the game. OT, regulation, doesn't matter. No points, just wins and losses. And this team will still have flaws and flubs, but this, to me, with the Habs, is different than the comeback that the Stars mounted, because that was just pure 20 seconds of oops in a game that the Avalanche utterly dominated, against the Stars, and that oops gave the Stars 2 quick goals. In this situation, the Avs were up 4-1, which should be a game that now a team, especially a bubble team, cannot come back from. But it was an admirably concentrated effort from the Canadiens to push back hard and continuously, and the Avs had a little hubris from their win over Ottawa, and they cannot allow this to cloud their judgment in the future.
Yeah, I think nothing to add there. I think maybe the best word was complacency, maybe an off night, an off third period, or even, let's say, looking too far ahead with all these teams in the playoff race. The Avs are still hunting. They are still hunting, trying to catch up to Dallas. Maybe they got their eyes too far in front of them, looking ahead to the future game and not being present in the exact moment in the third. And so you're right. Maybe it didn't quite, going back to what we said before, maybe not actually turtling, but, it was, every team has its off night, and the fact that they were still able to escape in that off third period, I think, is significant.
And that reminds me, really, that's what this Avalanche team is now. Is one of the points, you might remember, I hammered this home so many times, Dom, is that when the Avalanche needed to win games, especially against teams like the Canadiens, not that I'm saying the Canadiens are bad, but they should win against the Canadiens. They couldn't do it. And in games where collapses like this ended up happening, they would lose the game. And now all of a sudden, even when this team stumbles in a game, they're still getting the wins. And that to me is the single biggest turnaround that has happened since the trade deadline. Is now they get those wins that they, first of all, should be winning, but now they're also finding ways to win when shit goes wrong. Because it always will. That's the nature of sports. That's the nature of hockey. Shit's gonna go wrong when you never expect it to. Sports are the most unpredictable animal on the earth. But the fact that the Avalanche have been able to then figure it out and win anyway is why this team as it is right now makes me so excited.
And you should be, because that's the type of thing that you need for playoff success. The depth is one thing, but also just that resilience, because things are going to go wrong in the playoffs. When you are playing the best teams in the league, the deeper you get, injuries mount up, etc., whatever it may be, you're going to need a little bit of luck, but you're also just going to need the right attitude and the response where when things go bad, you don't get disheartened, you're never out of it, and you can respond and get the win. Winning, you'd much rather win ugly than lose pretty. And that's something I think the Avs have finally figured out and are, again, when we talk about peaking at the right time, they are finally practicing that with some consistency as well.
And that's the key word we've talked about. Oh my God, I'm destroying everything in front of me. That is the word we've talked about all year, is consistency. And the Avs have found it in innumerable ways at this point. Okay, I'll keep going.
Did I lose you?
No, I said the Avs have found consistency in innumerable ways at this point, and then I paused, and there was just nothing.
Oh well, yeah. I guess I missed it or something cut out on my end. But anyway, yes. Consistency is key. Consistency is king. Consistency is the one thing that we talk about being impossible to find in hockey, especially for goaltenders, but for any player in general, any team in general. And there is obviously that luck factor. So when the Avs can capitalize even in times of bad luck or less than stellar play, I think just wrapping it up, like we said before, is a very important sign.
Well, I will get through my final few or my last point here and then through the Red Wings game so we can talk about what the heck you got going on, Dom. That's why I tried to incorporate kind of my game notes into my little bits of analysis there so that way I didn't have to do both things and save a little bit of time.
No, it's a beautiful blend. And, for anyone who's been listening to us since the beginning, comment below on what you think of that for Cory, because I know we've evolved from going beyond just going game by game analysis, and sometimes I still do that. I'm not as good at it as he is, but I'm learning. And it's quite beautiful and elegant, let's say, when you can blend the two together in a natural conversation.
I don't know if elegant's the word, but if anybody has not listened to the hockey court episode, I think that's the Gauntlet. That's that episode. Go listen to it. I love that episode. That is one of my favorite episodes I think that we've ever done. The Gauntlet episode.
I will go back and listen to it sometimes just because it is quite funny. The accents, just the references to Joe Pesci. So much goes right in that episode, I have to say.
And I will say that sometimes there isn't a funny bit in a given week. Sometimes we just do game analysis because it's the simple thing to do. And we do have lives outside of this podcast. And really, this is kind of the first time in like a month that I have been able to do what I consider my standard of preparing for an episode. So I was able to kind of do something a little different than just game by game analysis. But in my mind, there is nothing wrong with game by game analysis because I think that those analyses sometimes lead to some of our best conversations, Dom.
And at the end of the day, that's what we want. And that's why we want to hear from you and allow you, all of our listeners, to join into the conversation, be it in the comments, be it on social media. Just reach out to us so we can help engage your thoughts, your minds, and get some new ideas spreading through here.
Exactly. Well, my final point here is the depth makes injuries not hurt as much. Now, Sam Girard ended up going out day to day at one point, but he returned against the Red Wings. He looked a little shaky, but his minutes were somewhat limited. Josh Manson is now out week to week again, apparently due to a different injury than the ones that he has accumulated this entire season. He has had a rough year, and Eric Johnson has tweaked something. Injuries can and still will happen, but the depth, the way that it is in both the forward and D core, makes these injuries not hurt as much, pun fully intended. As previously mentioned, with Sam Malinsky's improved state of play and Ryan Lindgren really turning his season around under the Avs system, as well as Eric Johnson being able to perform rather admirably for having to step in after the Manson injury, the Avs have not taken many noticeable steps back. It also is assisted by the fact that both the third and fourth lines will eat any other lines alive, as well as Valeri Nichushkin and Brock Nelson being absolute puckhounds. No one is safe. You worry every time someone goes down, though. Cousins put a bad hit on Drury during the Sens game, which gave the Avs a power play. The Habs wanted to scrap a ton during their game, and Lindgren was driven headfirst into the boards against the Wings. These are just a few examples of many of the little incidents that occur over the course of these games, and it's very scary, admittedly. So we hope for continued health of our athletes and that need as much intact as can be going into the playoffs. But going into what the fuck? Oh, I forgot to put this in here. I'm so silly. This was for the second period against the Habs. I don't know how this ended up down here. But Big Cock Brock got his second of the game on the power play on the second unit, just like what we talked about. Crazy if you don't try to forcibly inject him onto the top power play unit, that not only leaves the first unit to be dangerous, but also creates a fantastic second unit, which has now been able to do some damage.
Wow, it's almost like what I said last week.
Oh, sorry, this was the second period against Ottawa. How the fuck did this get down here? Okay, everybody. Well, I was like, I prepared my episode so well this week, but I don't know. I said, when your team is this blatantly dominant, your netminders don't need to do much, and the Avs were squarely in control, and Wedgwood makes the save on the occasion that Ottawa actually manages to sneak into the Avs zone. But the Avs just maintain consistent zone pressure across four lines. For those who don't know, the Avs absolutely shit all over Ottawa. It was kind of awesome. So that was really fun. Just to quickly talk about Detroit, just from the heart here, because I went to this game and man, oh man, it was fun because I did the rare thing and I actually sat in the lower bowl. I actually prefer to sit up a little higher. I like to see the whole ice, but man, does sitting down there give you a really unique perspective of the game. What do you think, Dom?
Oh, well, so this is the beauty about the Sharks' struggles, is that I've had the opportunity to be very close to the ice in the tank on multiple occasions, which is quite the experience. I hope you can join me for one sometime out there in San Jose. But as you know, and if you have been listening to us over these half of this year now, crazy still to me that we're here at 26 episodes. But alas, anyway, I think one of the things I enjoy most, and everyone should know by now, is I love checking. I love the hits and the physicality part of hockey, with all of this being done on the fastest game on
Dom
TV.
has like 20 checking accounts, everybody. He just loves checking.
I do love checking. Don't worry, they're all balanced. No worries there. But I do love to have a good check finished, and that's the beauty when you are down in the lower bowl. Is from up high you can see everything. Down lower, you can see the speed, and you can also just see the physicality, the force of the flexing in the plexiglass. You can hear it much louder as the puck is rung around the boards or as it goes off the glass. You can hear the sound of goalie saves a lot easier. The tape-to-tape passes you can always hear super crisp, one of the most pure sounds, just like the sound of skates on ice. But you can hear them even more clearly down lower to the ice. But I also think it's nice sometimes when you can hear when the players are chirping each other mid-game and getting in each other's heads. And that's something you can't do unless you are really close to the ice.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely is loud in the lower bowl. And it's weird because I have sat both all the way at the top of Ball Arena and also literally against the glass. That was a one-time thing, and that's because somebody else who was there gave us their tickets for the rest of the game. So I promise I am not rich. I did not pay for those tickets. Because I was already there. They were sitting against it. Anyway, up in like the 300s, close to heaven, it's like quiet. The sound does not reverberate as well up there. And then down in the lower bowl, I was going deaf. I sound like a geriatric, but I was like, damn, it's fucking loud.
Well, yeah, you have the echo effects, and people are definitely a little bit more engaged. They cheer louder, more consistently. And I think it's also because there's just that general volume. People feel more comfortable, like they're not being disruptive. Typically, I mean, you'll always have your disruptive individuals who've taken some liberties with how much they elect to consume on the evening. But in general, I think when you're up in the top bowls, it's more of a going for the experience at a reasonable price. That's where you see more groups together. When you're in the lower bowl, you definitely just get some of that pure hockey intensity rubbing off through the fans just as much as it does through the players.
You are most certainly right because. Hold on, everybody. I have to chew my food.
Drink your water, everybody, while he chews his food.
My mom gets mad at me when I talk with my mouth full. She's right, though, everyone. So listen to your mother. I'm going to summarize the game real quick. Really, it can be summarized like this. First is that the Red Wings are not very good 5-on-5 right now. They are very good on special teams, at least on the power play. I believe they have one of the better power plays right now. They are currently Oh, wait, sorry. Wrong percentages here. They currently have the third best power play at 29.1%. And last night, I think they said it was first. So it's kind of fluctuated, but I mean, they have a great power play. They scored their first goal on the power play. So, I mean, that is their bread and butter. That is where they're really good. And a lot of people said that, like, we steamrolled and just blew past the Red Wings. That is not how I felt that it was at all. Yes, the Avalanche overall played the better game. Obviously, they got the win 5-2. But every period felt like a competitive period from the Red Wings, to their credit. And they never really gave up shooting and on their chances. I mean, they were down in the Avalanche's zone. However, the unfortunate fact for the Red Wings is that Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon were on one last night. Like, on one. They were completing some of the most insane passes I have ever seen. Like, they were doing like fucking Beyblade spin moves, ninjutsu out there, threading the needle to each other. It was grace. It's like they were making a painting on the ice. How Nathan MacKinnon didn't score like 20 goals is insane to me. At one point, he scores a power play goal after a 1:53 long shift. For those who are less hockey adept, most shifts are 30 seconds to a minute. So imagine, right, you're sprinting the 100-meter dash as hard as you can, but you have to sprint the 100-meter dash for almost 2 minutes as hard as you can. That is Nathan MacKinnon. And he scores at the end of it, and he just stares down the net like the ice-cold motherfucker that he is. So that is in a nutshell that game. But the game winner came from Taves, and the only reason I talk about it is because I love saying this. It was an absolute missile from Taves, where Lyon was screened by his own man. And man, it was great. Now, what I love about the Detroit game, and I don't want to spoil this, but obviously most people know that the Avalanche and Detroit Red Wings, Yep, it's not going to work tonight, Dom. Yep, we gotta call it tonight. We can't keep going. I give up. They had one of the most heated rivalries, not just in hockey, but in all of sports back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Now, that was back when they were both in the Western Conference, but now, obviously, the Avs are in the West, the Red Wings are in the East, and so they don't see each other as often. The rivalry is not as strong, and as me and Dom have kind of previously established, a rivalry is really built on both playoffs and if both teams are competitive. And back then, the Avs and Red Wings saw each other in the playoffs a lot, and they also played each other in the regular season 3 to 4 times a year. So that allowed that animosity to really come out. If you get a chance, read the book Blood Feud by Adrian Dater. It is fantastic at talking about the entire rivalry from beginning to end. And it might even change your perspective on who you agree with, at least in the rivalry. That would be a fun thing to talk about. But unfortunately, the rivalry in and of itself is really kind of gone. But I mean, Red Wings fans are incredibly well traveled, and I think the spirit of the rivalry is still alive. We have a lot of fun, to be honest with you. Like the Red Wings, see, I was mad because the fans didn't do it right, because the Red Wings fans are supposed to go, let's go Red Wings, and then the Avs fans go, Red Wings suck, and it's supposed to be a call and response. And the Avs fans are dumb. You all are dumb, okay? You all are dumb because you just kept going, Red Wings suck. Red Wings suck. No, it's a call and response. That's how the game is supposed to go. And you didn't play the game right, Avalanche fans. Come on. It was like half an arena of Red Wings fans. It's supposed to be back and forth. But I digress. I also yelled at my section at one point because they were taunting Alex Lyon because he was back on our end. And I said, guys, don't, because they were going, pull your goalie. And I was like, stop saying that right now, because the Red Wings were down in our end. And guess what? They got their second goal of the game at the end of the third period. And I was like, I hate all of you. And I literally yelled at my entire section. I was like, why would you all do that, you motherfuckers? We were all laughing together. So don't get the idea that we were all like actually mean to each other. No, it was fun though. I made everybody around me laugh like the entire game. So that was the best part. It was fun. It was a good time. But that leads me to the question of, for you, Dom, to kind of start rolling into our next sections here. Since the Red Wings really aren't the Avs' biggest rival, anymore, who do you think is the Avalanche's biggest rival right now? I think we maybe have talked about this before, but I think it's worth revisiting.
We certainly have talked about this before. I think it's without a doubt in my mind right now, it is the Dallas Stars.
I agree.
And that's due to just where both teams are ranked, geographic proximity, the number of times you play each other in the year, both teams being playoff contenders, possibly meeting or just in the hunt. So those games are worth more. Not to mention now with the whole Rantanen ordeal, go back and listen to our episodes pre and post trade deadline and everything that went on there, because there's a lot of emotions and things worth knowing if you are new to our podcast, or just a big Avs fan. It's worth listening to. But you think if you asked me 5 years ago, I would say the St. Louis Blues, and that was definitely something we saw a lot of in the 2010s. But in the 2020s, I do think Dallas holds the mantle, and that's something important with rivalries is that you can have long-standing ones that don't go away. Clearly, we talked about it in other episodes for the Sharks that the Nashville Predators and the Sharks have played with a lot of animosity this season, though I can't point to a clear reason for rivalry in my memory. So that one clearly goes back a longer time and has been renewed at points throughout history, and requires even further research on my end. But then you do have these ones that are more localized, that are within your division, that you see often, and then eventually you guys both are good at the same time, and it ratchets up the intensity for at least that 5 to 10 year period when you have those overlapping cup windows.
Damn it, I needed you to talk for like 5 more seconds. Keep going.
Okay, sure. So when I say overlapping cup windows as well, so for something that maybe we've talked about, but to make it more clear, the overlapping, when we say a cup window, that's when you're talking about a team is in their win now mode. They have all of their prime roster talent is paid for, and they also have some of their younger talent stepping up at the right time on their entry-level contracts. You have your all-star caliber players playing their best hockey at the same time. You have that depth. You have healthy roster. You are in a good place to go on a run and win games for the next few years. We see a lot of these extensions for guys in their prime between 6 to 8 years, and so typically when you get multiple of those players all lined up together at the same time, you have that 6 to 8 year, or maybe 5 to 10 if we add some extra margin of error on there, 5 to 10 year window where you can be in win now mode and trade away more picks and keep doing things to build and be competitive and in the hunt every year. And then over time, guys retire, and it depends on how well you draft or how many of those draft picks you trade away that determines if you will have to rebuild or if it can be a retool and such, and these other terms you might have heard us say. So I think that's where we see now with the Stars. Now what the Avalanche have, it was previously the Avalanche's weakness, but the Stars and Avalanche both have great goaltending now. They both have a lot of great talent, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ice. Both have been rearming at the trade deadline and beforehand, trying to build themselves for a cup contender. And both have been in the playoff hunt, or actually in the playoffs, each of the last couple of years. So that's really all the fundamental makings for a rivalry, especially when you play a team 4 times a season that is your closest team geographically, or at least it used to be.
Exactly. And I agree that nowadays the Stars are, in fact, the Avalanche's biggest rival. And I actually disagree. I think in the 2010s, it more was the Minnesota Wild. Because I think back to the 2013 and 14 season where the Avs were kind of on that Cinderella run against a much better team in Minnesota. And it really looked like they were going to beat them. But Minnesota ended up, coming back and winning it in game 7 on a heartbreaking breakaway. And so that I think really plays into why I feel that way. But for the Avalanche and the Stars, I quickly gave it a little Google search here. And interestingly enough, I think the Avalanche and the Stars do have a bit of a playoff history, especially in recent memory, because obviously the Stars have knocked the Avalanche out in a Western Conference final. They've knocked them out in a second round, and I know there's a couple other ones in there. They actually, back in 1999, the Avs were primed to win again, but were knocked out by the Stars in the Western Conference final when the Stars went on to win their first and only cup. And I look here, and the Avs and the Stars have met in the playoffs 6 times, and the Avs have only won those playoff series twice, and they are currently holding a 2-series losing streak against the Stars in the playoffs. And obviously those are recent losing playoff series. So I think the Avalanche have a lot to prove against the Stars, especially going into these playoffs. So there's a lot of fun storylines to unfold, but thank you, Dom, for humoring me on that question. I think the answer is pretty obvious, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're correct. I just did some Google searching myself, and there's this thing called NoRivalry.com that can rank different factors for rivalry points. It does have Minnesota as the highest aggregate rival points. The Detroit Red Wings is one of the longest standing rivalries, as you said, going back multiple decades. Actually, the Golden Knights apparently would seem to rank third potentially.
That doesn't surprise me.
And then maybe sometimes it can be 5-year periods, but it does seem like over the years, over the decade, the Wild were definitely more consistent. I certainly remember more of that 2015 to 2020 period where I felt like the Blues were in that similar window of success and battling for those playoff spots. I feel like the Avalanche knocked them out in the first round in a wild card game or in the last game of the season to keep the Blues from making the playoffs. So I at least remember in high school there were a lot of Blues jerseys, a lot of Avs fans, and a lot of animosity. And so that just might have been my localized experience that biased me towards that one. And then, of course, Vegas is on there. So, Cory, I open up this opportunity for you to say some of your favorite words.
Oh, yeah. Fuck you, Rico. Yummy.
And who doesn't fucking hate the Vegas Golden Knights? It is like the only thing that actual Vegas locals like, and not that there's very many Vegas locals, but it is like the one thing they like about attractions in their city is the Golden Knights. So I respect them for being true hockey fans for the ones that are out there, but fuck the Vegas Golden Knights.
Now, what did you say this website is called?
I was just Googling and it shows up as NoRivalry.com, like KNOW.
Oh, that's why it didn't pull up. NoRivalry.com. This site can't be reached. Well, what the fuck? Hold on. No. I can't spell. We're good.
Yeah,
know
so
your teams and your rivals. Oh, this is neat. Okay, well we will throw this in the description, everybody, so you can take a look at this if you have other teams that you really like. To speak on the Vegas Golden Knights, though, they also have a recent playoff history with the Avalanche, knocking them out multiple times. So really, that is not a big surprise. And wow, like these are big. I'll have to do more digging into how this is scored. This is interesting. Okay. We'll come back to you with this at some point, everybody, because this is neat. This is neat. We'll come back to this, but Dom, I have been going on and on and on, so I want to get to you here. So, Dom, despite the Sharks tanking in the tank, they have managed to pick up some wins here and there, and are in prime position to play spoiler to other teams trying to either improve their positions or even make a playoff push. That is, whenever MacLeod, Celebrini, and Will Smith aren't murdering SJ Sharkey with soccer balls. The play is limited, but the vibes are immaculate. So everyone, it's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Well, thanks, Cory. You are certainly correct that the vibes are immaculate, despite the Sharks being the first team eliminated from playoff contention. The Chicago Blackhawks were also eliminated in this past week, and I love shitting on them a little bit and their negativity in comparison to the Sharks. It's really a tale of two very opposite stories for teams in a very similar position right now. What Cory alluded to, if you end up going on while you're following us on Instagram and on there doing your fun searching, looking for new content from us, how about you just type in look up the Sharks, and you can see Will Smith Celebrini teed him up, but he absolutely beat the crap out of that ball with his foot, and it went straight into SJ Sharkey's face. Thankfully, Sharkey is okay. We do love Sharkey. I have little magnetic, Sharkey with magnets in the hands and feet that I've had since I was a little kid that sits at my office, so it looks like it's waving to me in my cube. So that's just a total random fun fact that has nothing to do with actual hockey on the ice. But with the actual hockey on the ice...
Wait, hold on, pause, dude. Is he okay? Like, actually,
is Sharky okay?
They fucking nailed him. And I mean, you can even hear him in the video going like, oh shit. Like, they hit him hard. Like, they hit him square in the face. I mean, I know it was more the mask, but they hit him. They really hit him.
So thankfully, with the way the SJ Sharkey mask is, it definitely hit more of the nose, if you will, the snout, where the actual wearer's head is.
Damn.
Yeah, more of a shock to the system, and he certainly played along for dramatic effect. Sharky's been through it a little bit. He was getting dragged around by that four-wheeler on the ice for media day, right around the time when the Sharks were actually officially eliminated. So he's had a rough time, just like the rest of the team, but still brings all that excited spirit to every game.
I hope they bought him a meal afterwards or whatever, man, because they nailed the poor guy. Anyway, yes, please carry on.
I would say they should buy him a beer to help with the pain, but they're not even fucking 19 or 20 yet. So
they're too young,
let alone 21.
Go ask their dad, Tyler Toffoli, to do it.
Yeah, or their dad, Joe Thornton. MacLeod Celebrini is still living with Jumbo, so maybe.
Oh my God! Did you hear they play Fortnite together? And Jumbo Joe talks about playing Fortnite all the time.
I mean, they truly are like the adult children with playing Fortnite with Jumbo Joe, the sleepover with Tyler Toffoli when all three of them scored a goal in a game and they convinced him to sleep on it. He actually spoke on a podcast about it. And I know you've seen this, Cory, talking about how it messed up his back and how he's on the back nine of his career. His rest days are rest days, and these kids just have all the energy in the world and just are living their best life. And even though there's struggles, they haven't let it knock their confidence or impact their love of the game. And that's really, I think, important to see, and the right attitude and mentality that's going to lead to the Sharks' success here in years to come.
Yeah, that's how they're keeping the positive vibes going there in San Jose. But yes, play on the ice. Carry on.
Oh, yes. Getting to the play on the ice. I mean, there are 2 games once again this week to cover, which means next week I'm going to have 4. So, great balanced scheduling there. But
seriously,
the first one won't take us much time because it was on Thursday, the 20th versus the Carolina Hurricanes. And I actually need to pause because I promised myself I would do something to start the intake segment. And I can't believe I let it slip by my brain here. So,
oh, no.
Really quickly, I have to give a shout out to the only Sharks fan in my family who is a bigger Sharks fan than me. Happy birthday to my younger sister, Natalie. I love you, sis. I'm happy to watch hockey with you all the time. I'm happy that you're going to be out here in Colorado more, though hopefully we can both go out to San Jose sometime soon and go see a game on me. I love you, sis. Love the Sharks. I know you do too, and we'll see you soon. Happy birthday.
That was so sweet. Happy birthday, Natalie. It was very nice to meet you. at the Avalanche game where we destroyed you, but you were a treat. Happy birthday.
Yeah, so for everyone, while I talk about the Sharks and have this deep fandom, I have to say Natalie has seen more games in recent years from her time studying at school out there not too far from the tank in San Jose, and is, like I said, the only person who can truly rival my love of the Sharks and is known to say the pledge before every game as I do, which Cory was blessed enough to witness on more than one occasion. Even if he refuses to participate, that is okay.
I'm not going to pledge to a team that's not mine.
Which is fair enough, but the peer pressure will be here on behalf of the tank.
You know what, Dom? I will make you a healthy bet. Next year, if the Sharks manage to beat the Avalanche in any of their contests, I will say the pledge live on the podcast.
You have got yourself a deal. What do I need to do on the other end of this? Is if we get swept, is there something? Do I got to wear a jersey? How do we make this balanced?
To me, I feel like I was thinking about that, but I'd rather do a jersey swap. Like if once your guys are a bit more competitive, right? If the Sharks and the Avs are more on even playing field, I would love to do it like with our home game here in Colorado when the Sharks come. Once they're more competitive, I think we should do that. Loser has to wear the winner's jersey. Man, what should you do, Dom? That's a good question. I'll think about that. Throw an idea in the comments, everybody. Throw ideas in the comments. I don't know.
Within reason, let's mind you, but we have a lot of witnesses that you've committed to your half of this bargain, and I look forward to it because I do think it's not so far away. It is quite possible next year.
Maybe.
If Askarov is healthy when we play you, that will make a big difference. So we don't have to put up Forgiev against the guys who really want to put the puck in his net in particular. But back to the present day, or I should say the present day as of 6 days ago, the Sharks hosted the Carolina Hurricanes, who we're surging at the time. We're on like a 7-game win streak, and the Sharks were not going to really be able to start or stop that, I should say, especially in not rookie. Well, I guess it's kind of rookie. The AHL prospect goaltender Georgi Romanov. This was his second time playing for the Sharks this season, but his first start after coming in for relief for Georgiev in the prior game. He actually played really great through 2 periods, but in the third period, just like the Sharks are known to do, let the game get away from them a little bit, and he finished with 26 saves on 29 shots. Actually, in this game, the first goal was one of the most unique ones I've ever seen, Cory, and that was when William Eklund scored a goal from his backside, but not just like we talk about where he's on his butt and shoots it. No. The puck was kind of like in his skates or just like underneath him when he tripped and fell on top of it and then slid into the net, dislodging it from its post. So apparently the refs were able to tell that the puck underneath like his hip, his right leg, fully crossed the line before the post was dislodged, and it was allowed a goal since it was not deemed goaltender interference. Very unique situation, worth looking up online, anyone, if you're interested. I've never seen a goal like that. And of course, this was the Sharks' only goal of the game, so that's what ultimately prevented a shutout. But it was the first goal of the game, so they actually were able to get on the board first. And San Jose certainly did not let the Hurricanes run away with this game, but ultimately the result was as expected in a 3-1 loss. The Canes, again, were on a roll. They are a playoff team that is also hot at the right time in win-now mode. The Sharks simply aren't, although I'm always sad when I see Burns come into the building and not be wearing teal. Love to see him still succeeding at 40 years old. And wouldn't you know, we are birthday brothers. Thank you for telling me that, Cory, because one of my favorite players, one of my favorite jerseys I have, happens to share the same birthday. So crazy world out there. Love that alignment for me, at least. I guess as a positive note, I would just like
Dom,
to
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Would you, before I say it in the way that we normally say it, would you consider the Eklund goal perhaps of the goober variety, or would you say it doesn't quite meet the goober criteria?
That's such a
I have seen the goal. I don't know if I'd quite count it of the goober variety, but I wanted your opinion.
It is closer to the goober variety than the standard. and that it's not a goober because it wasn't scored by the other team in that way, but it is certainly odd. It is very unique in that, I mean, I couldn't even see the puck. I can't believe they were able to call it a goal. Like, if they didn't call it a goal, I don't think you'd be able to overturn it and have it be as a goal. Also, wait, everyone, I'm just seeing what Cory has right now looking at this. That EP, that Emergence, such a good song.
I didn't know you could see me shopping. I'm paying attention, everyone. I forgot to close my stream.
Oh my god, love that song.
I didn't wait. You're a Sleep Token fan? I didn't know you were a Sleep Token fan. What?
I'm not like a major follower, but that certainly was very big in the feed of my EDM, all of my artists who are in that punk, former emo, have that like emotional but the headbanger music, like that type of thing just appeals to all of them, all of the ones who loved Linkin Park in all those days. They draw, like many of us who listen to them, draw on some of those old vibes of 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago even. And so something like that Emergence by Sleep Token definitely speaks to me as well. I know.
I'm glad that you liked it. Yeah, everybody, spoiler alert, music is a big part of my life. Sleep Token is my favorite band, and I liked them before they blew up. I just want to say I'm not a fucking poser. Their new song actually
testify on his behalf.
Their new song in theory drops actually tomorrow, or I guess today when you're listening to this podcast. Or me and my friend are hoping those rumors are true. Sorry about that, Dom. I was just clicking around through my tabs here, but I promise you have my full and undivided attention.
No, it made for a funny and an enjoyable detour for me. Wrapping up the Carolina game, the only thing I have to say is an inherent positive, because they couldn't get on the board. Romanov was okay. I mean, like I said, he played 2 good periods, but not 3. So, that's what it is. He's still young and hopefully will continue to improve. Russian goaltender, so that's, I guess, something to look forward to his growth arc. Since as we've talked about on former episodes, they typically end up doing very well in the NHL. Those goaltenders from the north on that side of the world. Anyway, the Sharks were actually the far more physical team in this game, and for someone who likes physicality and believes the Sharks have been bullied a little bit with all of their young talent, these guys who have not necessarily put on all the pounds yet, they out-hit the Canes 27-7. So the addition of guys like Vinny Desharnais and Zach Ostapchuk have definitely made that impact that Mike Grier was looking to add to the team, and made the Sharks more big, imposing, and physical, which is something, again, as a fan of hitting, I quite love to see, especially as the underdog team. Go out there and make it hard on your opponent. When we talk about stealing wins and playing spoiler, go spoil their night and make them have to actually play you. Don't let them just coast through the game. And I think hitting and being physical with the team is a great way to force them to increase their intensity and match you. So love to see that. But overall, like I said, 3-1 loss. I'm not sure I expected anything different, but it was a close enough game. The Sharks didn't feel out of it at any point where they were getting just beat down on, so that was also a good sign.
And that's always the sign of progress, when it's not a total devastation of both your on-ice performance and your mental confidence. So definitely always something to be said, even in those losses.
Certainly. And moving ahead so that we can talk about a win, I told you there were only 2 games. Cory, you said there would be a win. So guess what, everyone? The Sharks beat the Boston. Wow, the
Boston Bruins. What's wrong with us lately? Oh my!
Add it to the list.
God. Boston. Dude, are we okay? Do you smell toast? Like burnt toast? Are you all right?
I can't tell anymore. I think that's all I smell at this point.
We're okay.
It's just my allergies are flaring up. Who knows?
Oh my goodness.
Cory, do you know why this win over the Bruins is significant to the Sharks?
I do remember now. I was just going to say, because Boston fucking is stinky, and I like it when they lose. But no, I do recall, but I will allow you to share.
So for those who don't know what Cory knows, or haven't been paying attention in maybe previous episodes, this snapped a San Jose Sharks 14-game losing streak against the Boston Bruins that is going back 9 years to 2016. It had been exactly 3,294 days since the San Jose Sharks last defeated the Boston Bruins. Just let that sink in. And this is even when the Sharks were a playoff team. 2016, they went on the run to the Cup Finals and eventually lost to the Penguins. Sad face, but we'll get one. Celebrini's here now. It'll be okay, Sharks fans. But goddamn, that's like 9 years. Insane. A long time. A team that we don't like mutually, Cory, or at least I don't hate, but I don't like. I'm not as far with you in the hating thing because they're out there in the East. No rivalry. I don't have a particular desire for them to suffer, but they're finally regressing to the mean and joining the rest of us here in the real world after their years of playoff appearances. But yeah, that quite a long time to continue losing to the same franchise. So glad to see that has ended. So it's not up there on those all-time like longest losing streak type things anymore. Good news as well, the Sharks actually never trailed in this game. Once again, it was William Eklund scoring early in the second period off assists from Celebrini and Cagnoni to put the Sharks up 1-0. Why this is significant was this is the first career NHL point for Luca Cagnoni in only his second NHL game. He is a very promising young defensive prospect playing on the left-hand side. And I'll talk about this maybe later, Cory, like with some of what we have planned. But we have some good left-handed defensemen coming up through the ranks for the Sharks that I look forward to maybe seeing play full-time for the NHL roster next year. It was former Avalanche player Casey Middlestat, who you were originally worried about trading, but then very happy upon the arrival of Big Cock Brock to see him go. He was responsible for the Bruins tying the game late in the second period.
Boo.
But alas, the Sharks would not be denied of ending this all-time long suffering against the Bruins. It was another defenseman in his first game with the Sharks, Lucas Carlson, who scored the game-winning goal with less than 4 minutes remaining in the third. As I stated, his first career game and goal in teal, even though he has been in the league for 5 or 6 years now, spending time having some ups and downs, and right now he is on his comeback tour with the Sharks. And he actually brought home 2 points on the night with an assist on Barclay Goodrow's empty netter with less than a minute remaining. So it was a very clutch moment to get the Sharks a win in regulation and not have to deal with the risks of overtime or the perils of a shootout. Carlson, that is Lucas Carlson. A lot of Carlsons in the league these days.
Evidently.
To specify. But Carlson, Eklund, and Celebrini all netted 2 points in the win, no pun intended. And actually, after Romanov had a rough night 2 days prior, Georgiev had a strong night in this one with 22 saves on 23 shots faced to be the second star of the game, Cory. So looks like the Sharks' next 2 opponents better watch out, and the following ones, well, here's a free win coming your way when Georgie inevitably drops off again.
For those who don't know the joke here, it's that Georgiev will always string together 3 strong games back-to-back, and then he will gloriously lose the next 3. So we'll see if that holds true, because I believe you play the Maple Leafs next, who you played spoiler for before, so it'd be genuinely really funny if you beat them again, because they really want to win the Atlantic Division, so it would be pure fucking comedy if you beat them a second time. So please do that. That would be very funny.
Well, and now the Sharks chase to hit 20 wins this season. They are at 19 wins.
Come on, baby!
They only need 1 more. And so that would be quite fitting if they did get that against the Maple Leafs. They also host the Rangers on this upcoming Saturday. That's a winnable game against a team desperate for wins. And then on the back end of a back-to-back, they are at the LA Kings, who is our all-time longest rival, although I still personally think Vegas is a bigger rival at this point because I am a hater for those Knights, and I just dislike them for reasons. On previous episodes, see our Heroes and Villains segment to hear in more detail for those of you who have not been with us all that long. But Cory, I only had those 2 games for my standard in the tank, so where should we go from here? Because I know you had some more questions for me, possibly.
I did!
You had some other things we wanted to bring, so I'm going to pass it back to you, man, and let's get into it.
Honestly, I would encourage anybody, if this is your first episode with us, really do go back and listen to some of the old episodes. Don't listen to like the first 2 or 3. Those ones are a little rough. We were still really figuring things out then. But anything past that, I think, honestly, is really fun stuff. So we always set the mission that every episode that we release is our new best episode that we've ever done. And we've really tried to keep that quota going. So I really love doing this, even if it's just for fun. But we really love you listening. And we hope to grow the audience here because we want to do big things with this podcast. I think the goal has changed slightly. Not that the mission statement that we said at the beginning has changed, but I would also like to try and become the biggest Colorado Avalanche news source podcast, whatever, because I love talking about this team. And like I said, we want to do big stuff with this. We've shouted out some charities before. It would genuinely be really awesome to do charity work, partner up with things like, Cronky Sports Charities and other associations that do good in the world. So that's why we want to grow the audience, because we want to do cool stuff like that. Anyway, moving on to my questions for you, Dom. I got a few of them for you here. Who are your top 3 players on the Sharks, not named Will Smith or Macklin Celebrini, and why?
Ooh, good question. Well, I have a couple perspectives on this. So should I say overall, would you still think I should put an honorable mention in for a young player? How would you like me to answer this? Because I think I'm biased and could say very many names. So trying to pick the 3, should I target maybe 1 young player and 2 more of the veterans?
No, I'm not helping you. This is your question, bro. You answer it how you think it's appropriate. I just came up with the question.
Well, fair enough. You said not named Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith.
Correct.
You forgot the young one who is
William
absolutely underrated, who I've liked for the last few years as he's been continually improving, and that is Will Eklund.
Yeah.
He is just as much part of this core and building for the future. He does not get enough attention, enough love, and as I just said, he's been scoring goals in consecutive games. Consistent contributor for the Sharks, will be within their top 6 for years to come, and is one of that foundational core pieces that they are building around. At number 2, let's say Tyler Toffoli for his dad-like vibes, his always ability to show up with a big goal in the moments that matter. And I also love that he's not playing against us, having spent the prime years of his career with LA, just making me mad when Vegas didn't exist. So LA was the object of my ire. So just simply the fact that he's a straight up dude, a great hockey player, a true veteran of the sport who leads in the right way, and someone who's now come full circle to return to California and I hope finish his career with us. And that, I mean, he's currently signed through the end of 2028 when he will be in his 35-36 season. So maybe another year contract after that if he's not done playing. Let him retire in the teal and finish out his career with us. So that leaves one more player, and this is tough. Instead of saying the number 3, I am going to give an honorable mention in honor of my sister. One of her favorites would be Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who during our cup run was really playing some stellar hockey, got a long contract for a lot of money, and has really dropped off a cliff since then. But Mr. Pickles is one of her favorite players going back all those years. So I'm going to say an honorable mention, definitely one of my favorites when I was younger. But I would say if I had to pick the true 3 as of today, I would go with Mario Ferraro, the toothless wonder out there, just always flashing a big grin, the big afro of hair, really consistent play, and someone who was sought after to be a depth role player at the deadline, and is someone who is clearly valued in the Sharks room, wearing the A on his chest. And Greer set the asking price at a first-round pick if he was going to be traded, and no one thought he was worth more than like a third. So clearly he is worth more to the Sharks even than what I know and see, and he brings a great energy to the team, the ice, and is still young and could continue to improve as he is 26 at this time. So I would say those are my 3, not including Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, with Vlasic as the honorable mention.
Is Mario Ferraro the son of Ray Ferraro?
That is a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that.
I will find out real quick. Is Mario Ferraro related to Ray Ferraro? No, he is not. He is not related. I think Ray Ferraro's son does play in the NHL, though. Hold on. Who is his son? Ray Ferraro son. Landon Ferraro. I think he made his debut for like the Bruins or something, or the Canucks maybe. Oh no, he played. Wait, no, I swear there was like a family member that Ray Ferraro was like, "I love you, buddy. Go get one out there." What? I'm confused. Never mind. Well, all right. I'm just gonna move past this point. I'm not gonna dwell on this. Here's your next question, Dom. What is your response for people who say the Sharks are just plain bad or hopeless?
I say you're not watching the games. Plain bad and hopeless was last year. That was consecutive games losing 10-1. We have not conceded 10 goals on this season. We have not had those devastating margins of loss. Last season, our average margin of loss was something like 4 goals per game. It was ridiculous. So I can say we are not hopeless simply just by comparing this season to last season. More points. And are we hopeless? No, we talked about the vibes. Last season, it was depressing. Like, it was so hard to be a Sharks fan. I wouldn't even want to talk about it on the podcast. And I know I've sounded depressed at points if you go through up and down on the episodes. But you can even hear it in my voice. As the season has gone on, I have had the benefit or perhaps the detriment of gaining hope, where there is that passion is renewed. There is that belief that this team is going somewhere. And it starts at the very top with Mike Greer, really actually committing to a rebuild, and that can be hard. But the fact is the selling period is pretty much over. We are at a point where it's mostly restricted free agents and young core with a bevy of draft picks to look forward to. We've got the best prospect pool, and it's starting to work. The team is scoring goals. Scoring goals was part of the problem. It wasn't necessarily always just about conceding goals. It was about scoring goals. And the Sharks have shown they can score goals now. They have the makings of a top 6. That was not there last year. I mean, we could barely piece together a top line. So the Sharks are going somewhere. Yes, it is tough. Rebuilds are. And it's the reality of a situation that was caused many years prior. And just eventually having that fallout come to bear. But we've turned the corner in a sense. And when we look at the competition in a similar spot, Chicago, you think about where Anaheim's going to be when you've talked about them, Cory. You look at a team like Seattle. I mean, Nashville is anybody's guess with how bad of a season they've had. I do expect them to be better next year, but a lot of these teams near the bottom of the West, I would expect the Sharks to finish ahead of next year. And I don't think I'm overstepping by saying that or overestimating their ability, because their year-to-year jump, especially depending on what they can go do in free agency and make trades after the playoffs are over and everything is opened up again for next season. Don't be surprised. This Sharks team is going to come out of a cannon next year and really surprise some people. I mean, I don't think they should surprise people if they've been paying attention. Macklin Celebrini is an absolute wonderkind, and not to mention Will Smith has finally found his stride. But yeah, this team, the vibes I think mean a lot. And when you have a locker room that has that confidence, has that joy for the game, and then eventually starts to have the right pieces in the room, the right system, another year under Warsofsky where things get a little bit more ingrained and he improves as a coach, Greer having the opportunity to actually go out and acquire guys rather than just sell them. Yes, it's going to be an interesting time, and it could go wrong. I will say that it could absolutely go wrong. But it doesn't feel demoralizing in that there is no hope. So I would just say go, just like I said, watch the games. Watch Will Smith kick a soccer ball into Sharky's face and know that things are going to be okay.
And I asked this question because I heard someone kind of not whispering, but talking about it at the Wings game last night, just talking about different echelons of teams. And I mean, that's always the brutal nature about any league, right? Is there always has to be someone in last place. There isn't going to be, 21st place teams. Somebody has to be the best and somebody has to be the worst. And right now it is unfortunately the Sharks, but I always talk about how context is important and the hows of why you're in a situation or how you've ended up where you are important to look at. And exactly as you, I think, just went through, it's not necessarily, yes, the Sharks are the quote unquote worst team in the league, but a lot has to do with, I think we talk about that mentality. And yeah, Chicago has a better record, but it just feels so doom and gloom there right now. Whereas if you look at the Sharks, you see that despite the losing record, the optimism and the belief in success is still very high. Yeah, nobody likes losing, but I think they believe that they won't be losing forever.
And not even just forever, but for long.
For long.
I think they believe, much like I do, that this can be an NHL 500 team next year, where you see the Red Wings are sitting right now. That could be the Sharks. I mean, teams like the Red Wings and the Ducks. I mean, I know I already mentioned the Kraken, but these teams that are right now looking at the wrong end of missing the playoffs, but are good enough to be stuck with a low end lottery pick in the draft, or not even get a lottery pick, right? So they're just going to be stuck in no man's land when it comes to draft season. They're not going to have the most equity to improve. They're still going to have aging players, while the Sharks are focused on a youth movement, and if anything, need to add some more experience and have that benefit. They also just don't have what the Sharks have with 10 first or second round picks in the next 3 years. So the amount of ammunition the Sharks hold make them a wild card that they can go do anything. They can go trade multiple first round picks and not even break a sweat to go pick up an all-star player with multiple years left on his contract. They have the cap space to do that. If a team struggles in the first 20 games of a season, has a critical injury, and just can see that it's just looking like it's bust and needs to commit to a rebuild, the Sharks can go swing a move that nobody else in the league can, which gives them a lot more flexibility. They're not going to be the Buffalo Sabres in the eternal rebuild. They're not going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins and Boston Bruins who are sliding backwards. Detroit is an enigma. Anytime I thought they were good this year, they shat the bed. And if one thing is for certain, the Sharks have been a good team at 5-on-5. Their issue has been special teams. And so Detroit's strength on the power play, good for them. Great for them. But you score most of your goals, you win more games by playing well at 5-on-5. Oh, and by the way, the Sharks actually beat the Red Wings. So to that Red Wings fan, yeah, if you think the Sharks are the worst team in the league, you lost to them. What does that make you?
It might have been an Avs fan that said that. I'm going to be so real with you. But
it's possible. And the Avs beat the shit out of us, so you know what? They can
either way
if they want to.
But my next question, and thank you for your insights there, Dom, is I think the answer is obvious in one area, less obvious in another. What is your hope for the Sharks goaltending situation going into next season?
So hope number one, Askarov is healthy. He's been battling a lingering injury here late in the season, has not been able to play at the NHL or AHL level.
Oof.
But Yaroslav is price controlled at $2 million average annual value for the next 2 years.
Nice.
So he should be the starting goaltender, the 1A in net for the Sharks at the start of next season. That is my expectation. The question is how the depth chart behind him works. Having seen Romanov, I don't think he's really ready to be a full-time NHL backup yet. I think he could use another year in the AHL. We also have, he's a restricted free agent as well. So while I would hope he gets a qualifying offer, no guarantees that he is even with the Sharks next year. Also, the other goaltender, Gabriel Carrier in the AHL for the Sharks system, he is also a restricted free agent, I believe, but with arbitration rights. So the Sharks should absolutely have no issue retaining him as an AHL player. So I think I see those two competing and playing together in the AHL for the CUDA, who've had a strong season this year, would project to be strong again next year. And effectively, the two of them are battling to get that spot. They have that competition and that pressure at that level to make that next step and be able to force their way into the NHL to be the 1B to Askarov or be his backup for the long term when we eventually do give him an extension. But right now, though, for the next 2-3 years, while we do have Askarov price controlled at only $2 million, I want to see the Sharks go out there and actually pay for a goaltender in free agency who's an unrestricted free agent, or possibly even trade for one. I spent some time looking at who are the UFA goaltenders who could be on a 2 to 3 year contract at a value similar to maybe what we were paying Georgiev and Vanacek in this 3 to 4 million per year. So you're paying them what they're worth, but not tied to them for a long time. So there won't be implications when you are starting to worry about extending the core players. I just looking at some of the ones that are available as unrestricted free agents. And again, part of this thinking 2 to 3 years is also so that does give Romanov or Carrier the opportunity, if they can force their way in, that it's a guy who you can flip at the deadline, who is going to be flippable, or you can adjust, right? And it's not going to be a long-term goaltender acquisition. I like a guy like Dan Vladar, who with Dustin Wolf's emergence for the Flames, he is potentially expendable. We'll see how the Flames spend their money, what money they have to spend, because I guarantee you it's less than the Sharks. I haven't looked at the salary cap. I think he could be an interesting 1B option that is still not a crazy price. His himself price controlled, but clearly he has consistently had a goals against average below 3. And while his save percentage isn't always amazing, his stat lines are far better than what Georgiev or Vanacek did. And if you need him to be a 1B, if you need him to help make sure Askarov doesn't get injured or doesn't lose time, he can do that. And he has certainly had his flashes of brilliance this year and has just been a little bit overshadowed by Wolf. Or another option would be to poach one from our rivals in Vegas and give like a 1 or 2 year contract to someone like Ilya Samsonov. Again, I'm not talking this game-breaking goaltender. I'm talking, let's pick up a guy who's experienced, excuse me, who may have seen the playoffs like Samsonov has, who can be a veteran presence, who can be dependable, far more dependable than someone like Georgiev or Vanacek when called upon to help lighten the load, but is not someone you expect to have for the long term or really, really are counting on for when the Sharks are making consistent playoff pushes.
Do you want them to dump Georgiev?
Absolutely. Sorry, I was drinking my water.
Take a water break, everybody. Drink your water.
I do want them to dump Georgiev. The 3.75 goals against, 875 save percentage are just both atrociously awful. I mean, if Georgiev is being signed, he is signed to the AHL at best, and he needs a comeback tour. But realistically, he was traded, and the Sharks took him on to see if he needed a change of scenery from the Avs, and it didn't work. So if he is going to succeed or ever come back in the league, I do believe it'll be by a change of scenery. I do not want Georgiev to be playing for the Sharks next year. And I also think if he has any remote chance of succeeding and being a goaltender at the NHL level again in his career, he will have to try somewhere else for whatever he can get in free agency, because he is 29 right now. So some people are going to see that and be willing to give him a chance. So I don't think he's necessarily out of the league, but I don't think the Sharks should give him any more opportunity. I have seen enough.
I think that's fair. Well, you did mention UFAs and RFA goaltenders, which leads us into the big question. This is the one you knew because I wanted you to have ample time to prepare a quality answer. Who are the players of any type, obviously, going into this free agent class that you think the Sharks should target, and why?
So I'm really quickly going to run through just a quick summary of the Sharks' restricted and unrestricted free agents that have been playing at the NHL level, just so we can get an idea of the space on the roster and what we're looking for. So firstly, aging defenseman Jan Ruda, who's been injured, UFA, was going to be traded at the deadline if he was healthy. He'll be walking and be playing somewhere else. Alex Georgiev, I have here, hoping I have him marked as not signed, so I hope that is the case. AHL unrestricted free agent defenseman Jimmy Schultz, who's 29. I think he is a candidate to walk in free agency since he is a left shot defenseman, and we do have a lot of those in the pipeline and with the active roster. So with the focus on right shot defensemen and on the youth movement, I think even though he has been elevated at points or could be an AHL guy, the fact that he's a UFA means that he's most likely to explore his opportunities elsewhere where he could get paid slightly more. I do think restricted free agent, though, Shakir Mukhamadullin has been a consistent piece, is going to be part of that core, was a great trade acquisition from the Devils. I think it is a top priority to give him a qualifying offer and match offer sheets that are given to him and get him locked in for at least the next 4 years. He's only like 25. So if we can lock him in for longer at a good price point for like a 6-year thing, I think that should be the move. And I would very much think that is what the Sharks need to do. So I hope Mike Grier handles that accordingly. Another one of those ones who spent some time at the NHL and AHL level, restricted free agent D-man Jack Thompson. Should also get a qualifying offer, lower value and lower year totals. He's slightly younger, but he is that right shot defenseman. So that is something that the Sharks are in dire need of. So they should take advantage of the restricted free agent rights so that they don't let one walk who's especially so young. I've already spoken about the goaltenders. So as far as remaining restricted free agents that are on the forward side that we've seen with the Sharks this season, guys like Klim Kostin, Nikolai Kovalenko, and Noah Gregor, I would like to think that they should receive qualifying offers, but depending on how the Sharks actually approach free agency, if they do go out looking to trade, these are the type of guys that when you talked about PTOs before, these are the type of guys who might find themselves pushed off the roster and end up needing to take a PTO for another team looking to next year. And Noah Gregor is the current and former Shark, so this has happened before where he was not extended as an RFA. Klim Kostin, I think, has been physical and injected something for that fourth line when he has played, as has Kovalenko, and Kovalenko obviously had a lot of potential. But when it comes to these guys that are fluttering on and off of the fourth line, depending on any given night, it's so hard to predict. Since they are restricted free agents, they should receive an offer sheet. That is without a doubt in my mind. It's just a question of how many years or what offers do they get elsewhere that the Sharks would potentially have to match, and are the Sharks willing to do so? And that's the question I really don't have the answer to, because physical fourth line grinders, they are more replaceable. So sometimes if somebody is willing to overpay for them, you just got to let them walk. But getting to the meat and bones of your question, thank you for letting me take that detour.
Yeah.
What are some free agents not on the Sharks that I would like the Sharks to pursue? And I'm going to start with forwards, because even though the core and the top 6, the top 2 lines are starting to really take shape, it is that third and fourth line that are in flux, and we do need to see improvement on. So I think there has been a focus by Mike Grier on a lot of his trade deadline moves of also acquiring center depth. So I'm focusing in general more on the wings when it comes to offense, guys that I think primarily are going to be third line potential guys, or who could help shift a guy like Colin Graff to be able to play effectively on the third line and not be pushed into a role on the top 2 lines that I think might be a step too far depending on the given night or line combination. He has been electric at his moments, but he is still young. So depending on him for those minutes, I do not think is a wise expectation. So just trying to be realistic there. Said it before, I'll say it again. I got all the prayers going up to the sky. I would love for Mikael Granlund to come home to San Jose when inevitably somebody's going to have to leave Dallas. They have Rantanen now. They're going to be right up against the cap. They've got so many players. They've got plenty of free agents. They wanted to extend him, and that was a month or two before Rantanen came, and there's no extension, and that means the door is open. Is it likely that he comes back to the Sharks? I'm not going to say that it is, but he loved his time in San Jose. He was our highest point scorer, our best power play on offense, our best penalty killer. Like, he was leading the Sharks in minutes, so many categories that he brought with veteran experience and leadership that clearly left a big and positive mark on the team. So if he is able to come back and instantly insert back into our top 6, I think the Sharks should give him a 4-year deal, a 5-year deal. The 6-year deal might be a little ambitious based on his age, but give him the long deal, give him the money, give him what you are giving Alex Wenberg and Tyler Toffoli for that role, knowing that there will be regression down the line, but what can they provide for your team now in building towards that cup? And is he a guy that I think still has enough years in him that he could win a cup with the Sharks? I actually do. I actually do think Granlund is playing the best hockey of his career right now. We've seen it. He has been undervalued, and his career was reborn in San Jose. And so there's an opportunity for him to come back to a system that he flourished in. I think he should do so, because then look at your top 6. Celebrini, Smith, Eklund, Toffoli, Wenberg, and Granlund. And we could argue Colin Graf could be in there. We could argue Wenberg could end up shifting down to be a third-line center, which is more of where he at least used to be naturally fitting, although he's really been an Apple machine when he's been on those top lines. So hard to say exactly, but this is a guy that I think if he is available and the Sharks can pay for him, they should pay for him. Cory, is it just me being biased towards Granlund, or what do you think when I say that?
Well, it's really funny because I was actually listening back to our trade deadline episode today, and you have now reemphasized the points on both Ruda and Mikael Granlund. And no, I don't think you're overestimating the value of Granlund here, because the NHL does have quite a few Finnish players who, of course, are all the best in the world. But I mean, Mikael Granlund played for Team Finland, played nationally, and it's very likely he'll end up representing his country at the Olympics as well. And I mean, he was clutch as hell. He put on a show at the national level against all the other best players in the world. I don't think you're overvaluing the impact of Granlund at all. Not to mention that it was very clear that he fit in with the Sharks system. And I mean, he was your leading point scorer at one point, correct?
Yeah, he was the first one on the team to, or I think Celebrini's crossed it now, but he was the first one and the only one at the time to cross 50 points.
So I mean,
when he left.
And hell, some teams barely have 50-point scorers, if that. And that was on the Sharks. So, I mean, he only has 49 points this year. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're lying to me.
Oh, was it just short of 50? Ah, my bad.
You're lying to me, Dom. How dare you? I am deeply offended that you have lied to me. No, he's past 50. That was a lie. He, with the Sharks, made it to 45 points.
Okay, so he was close.
But I mean, either way, he's having a career year right now where he is now at 58 points. His highest point total was, oh wait, no, never mind. His highest point total was 69 with Minnesota way back when. But I do see, I think, the potential for him to be a consistent, 60 to 70 point scorer. And I mean, you need guys like that on your team. And I think he really brings those strong leadership qualities that you have talked about. But again, he represents his country at the international level for a reason. That's because he has the talent to do so. So I absolutely think Granlund is somebody worth, if you can bring him back.
And you mentioned clutch. There's no amount of price you can put on clutch. And that's where I'm like, if we get him for a better average annual value, but give him a slightly longer contract, like I said, 5 years, even 6 years, there's a chance that he overlaps and that clutch shows up in the playoffs in a first or second year that the Sharks are actually in there as a contender. And something like that in the playoffs cannot be understated, the importance of just being clutch and showing up when it matters most. And so I think, give him a 5 year, $7.5 million. Easy. The Sharks have the space, and really think about, like, by the time, there's another 3-4 years before they have to extend Smith and Celebrini, so they're fine. That's not going to cause an issue. And if it really does, and you're getting down to that final year, do some gymnastics, do some trading at the deadline, do what Greer has been doing all along, if it really comes down to it. But I think risk versus reward, worth the price, worth the longer contract. I think I've said enough on the matter where my feelings are known. I do have some other free agent forwards that I think the Sharks should actively consider if they are available as unrestricted free agents here, and they're just willing to pay for them at the right value. Get them at the right value, right?
Right.
And I'm not trying to pick the bones of your team, Cory, so I am going to note some Avalanche players of interest to me because of traits you've described. What are the Sharks' main weaknesses now that they finally got their core and their top six put together? Their weakest point is their third line. And they traded a lot of the guys who would be playing on their third line. A guy like Nico Sturm, a guy like Luke Cunnin. The depth pieces that were consistent and physical and good at defense, good at face-offs, things like that, just the fundamentals of the game. And just, making the game hard for the opponent like you talked about. I do have to say that they weren't consideration, especially since the Sharks will reasonably be believed to outbid Colorado, who you guys are going to be pushing close to the cap no matter what. And that's just the reality. And then eventually you got to worry about the Natchez contract on top of everything, Makar extension, right?
Oh boy.
Yeah, so you guys have bigger fish to fry, that your third line guys, that if it doesn't work this year, one of them might come back or some of them might come back, but is it too crazy to say that the Sharks could poach a Jonathan Drouin, a great candidate for one of those 3 to 4 year contracts to help raise
Jonathan Drouin is on the first line. Thank you very the fuck much. Jonathan Drouin's a first or second line player. Yeah, here.
Think about what I said before, and you've talked about him sometimes floating between the second or even third line, depending on the night.
That was just when Jared Bednar was doing weird line combinations.
Fair enough, but if we have the chemistry already built out, maybe he is on the second line, and then he pushes somebody like a Wenberg or a Graf down to the third line. Fair enough. Either way, acquiring a guy like him raises the floor of our third line. If he steps into our top 6, great, then that's clearly an improvement based on what we have for the youth to build around. He would help our depth scoring, the physicality, the presence, just the difficulty of a team to play against. And similarly, I think it goes without saying, but a guy like Kiviranta, who's having a career year, he's making less than $1 million a year right now.
Yep.
He's going to get more money. And it's just a matter of how much he thinks he's worth, how much the Avalanche think he's worth, and how much other teams think he's worth. But for a team like the Sharks, he's exactly the type of player who is a solid third-line guy who they should absolutely be targeting on a 3-year contract, potentially could make the step up to the second line as needed. And I just, with the potential for the Avalanche to be cap-strapped, it's the type of guy that, I hate to say it, but the Sharks really do need to take a look, because they also need to try to look at the Avs model for success and rebuild. I've said it in previous episodes, rebuild in the model of how the Avalanche did to go from worst team in the league to winning a Stanley Cup in a period of about 5 years. And if that's the model, if that's what we're trying to do, then they should also look at players who have success and who would be part of, mimic that model or have succeeded in that model.
Man, I feel bad, everyone, because I lied straight to Dom's face, because he warned me. He said, hey, I don't want to upset you, but I'm going to talk about some of your players. I was like, I understand. It's a business. I wouldn't be upset at all. It would defeat the purpose of the exercise if you couldn't talk about certain teams, which I still believe. I did not sit here thinking that Dom was going to come straight for Jonathan Drouin, who, it occasionally slips my mind, is only on a 1-year deal with the Avalanche right now. How dare you come for one of our top 6? I love that man. He's happy in Colorado. Leave him alone.
I mean, I hate to do it to you, and we don't have to stick on this one too long, but just some ideas, because I did do my best to pull up a longer list, so I can rattle through some more forward names quickly, and then I have a couple defensemen as well that I warrant a tiny bit more consideration.
Yes, please do.
If the Avs, especially if the Avs win the Cup, but even if they don't, they will not be able to pay everybody at the price tax they will demand.
Cup tax.
They will somebody will be available, and I don't know who it's going to be, but the Sharks should be considering them, especially with where our market's at. And I would hope that maybe it hurts you a little bit less to know that they're playing in a place that you can still hear all about them and know that they're treated well and having great vibes and not be doomed to the land of Buffalo.
Seriously though. Poor Josh Norris. Dylan Cousins gets traded to the Sens, immediately pops off. Josh Norris is sent to the hell that is Buffalo. Josh Norris, yes, my team, we're going to make the playoffs for real this year. To Buffalo.
Yeah, what a fate I would not wish upon any hockey player.
I know, it really is like the gulag of the NHL.
Considering and just continuing to think about other players, typically we want to look at teams that are in the playoff hunt and are going to have those potential cap issues. So a team with a lot of unrestricted free agents looking to next year is the Washington Capitals. So they've put together a surprise season in a sense, but they're going to have forwards such as TJ Oshie on the older side, Beauvillier and Mangiapane. So when I'm talking about third, fourth line guys that raise the level, raise the floor, raise the experience, to help support a Sharks team that could be one of those bridge contract type guys, I think Beauvillier and Mangiapane in particular are targets that the Sharks could be in a reasonable price range bidding for those players. A bigger swing would be for a guy like Brock Besser, but I don't think the Sharks should be giving him the contract that they should not be offering him a contract at the value, the expense that he would want, especially for probably the number of years and the average annual value. I think that would be a bit of a punt that could risk actually causing a detriment to the rebuild with some of the guys in the long term that we need to extend. I don't know if he fits perfectly in the system, but if he was more bridge contract, somebody who recognizes he's 31 now, and so he's not going to get the same value he got before, I could see it. Again, not my favorite. I didn't list his name first, but who doesn't want to possibly give Brock Besser a much needed change of scenery and take the value from it? Looking again at other teams that are going to have to possibly lose somebody, Winnipeg might not be able to keep Nikolai Ehlers. He's on the younger side and could be an interesting and reasonable price range compared to Besser. And then another one I found was P.S. Suter would be another intriguing option that might benefit from being shifted down from a top 6 line role to being more in a third line role for reduced minutes and just having more of that experience and that grit that I think he has struggled to succeed as much, shifted up the lines than he used to, or was able to flash more success in a third line role. And then finally, the one I know I talked about not targeting like center depth as something we need, but free agent on a team that is seriously going to have issues retaining everybody is Florida. And I'm not trying to go pick the bones of Florida over and over again. We've gone a lot of back and forth with Florida, but would I absolutely love to have Sam Bennett if the Panthers cannot bring him back for another season. And he absolutely fits the mold of that big physical player in the middle that Greer has been targeting. I could see it where he is your starting third line center, and it doesn't matter that he might not always be the right guy to play on the third line. He plays with the physicality and the intensity that just takes that room up a notch and brings some professionalism in some sense of the word, but in a much more real sense. He brings some physicality, some just anger, some angst to that room, and can teach some of these young kids how to play man's hockey for the playoffs from what he knows. So just concept, if it could work out, I would kind of love to see that personally, especially when I talk about physicality and players who hit. Sam Bennett does it with the best of them. He fights with the best of them. Would love to be that team where you come into the tank, you better be ready to drop the gloves, because Bennett, a Stepchuk, they're going to be ready to go. Desharnais, ready to go with anybody who crosses them. Let's be that. Let's be that team. Let's be the team that people get mad at because we have all the talent of Celebrini. Oh, and if you hit him, you're going to get your shit rocked by any one of these big guys, whoever's on the ice. So I like that model personally, if it could happen to be. But Cory, I just listed a bunch of names. Any of those ones stand out to you that maybe the Sharks should be targeting in particular? I think I gave like 5 or 6 names there.
The one that I look at that's a really big one coming into this free agency class is Nikolai Ehlers. I think he's often underrated at his goal scoring ability, and that's what he is. He's like Brock Nelson in that he doesn't get, a massive amount of points, like necessarily eclipsing 80, although let me make sure I'm not totally full of shit here and lying. But he does score, and he scores well. So you can't ever discount a guy who will get you goals here. And yeah, okay, no, I'm not full of shit. He does not score a ton of points on the year, an admirable 60-ish points. But he does always reliably get you like 25 goals. And I mean, that is very valuable for a team like the Sharks when you have a guy who can step in and get you a couple goals here and there when you need them. So not to be discounted for Nikolai Ehlers. I think he would slot in nicely on like the second line on the left wing there. And that's a guy that I definitely look to just to kind of bolster that ability to continue to score.
And I agree, because I also think since he is so underrated and he is playing in a place like Winnipeg, I do think quality of life, most players don't like living in Winnipeg. Just there's nothing else to do with their life from what I've heard in the
Winnipeg
media circles. So he's the type of guy who might not take a lot to say, hey, do you want to come out to sunny California? You want to go play in the tank? We'll give you like a good price. We're not going to overpay like a ridiculous amount, but we're going to be competitive. And you want to come out here, join us, join this youth movement, and see where you could win a cup here in the next few years, because Winnipeg just chokes, for lack of a better word. So I like I said, I think he can be a little bit more price controlled, get him locked in for a bit of a longer time as a younger player, and he could become part of the core. So you can't build your core through free agency, right, Cory? We've talked about that, but
That's right.
you could get a guy like that who could then naturally end up working his way into the core just by providing that much needed goal scoring in clutch moments. So I do like that you pointed to that one. I kind of threw him in there in the middle to mix it up and see where you would be going, because he was definitely one that caught my eye just based on his current contract. But again, based on his current contract, it might be within the realm of possibility that Winnipeg could be able to retain him. So I'm keeping that asterisk in mind for myself, that I don't get my hopes too up. I know we've run a lot on time, but I did have some defensemen.
Yes.
So do you think we got some time I can run through these kind of quick?
Yeah. Run through your defensemen here.
So top one on my list, another target from Florida would be Aaron Ekblad. Could be available, again, depending on which players are able to be re-signed.
Better hope he's off the sauce, bro.
Yeah, I do think he will be off the sauce. I think that's actually going to help drive his price point down and make him more acquirable right now, which is great for us. Great for anyone, really. But he is a quality, when he's not juicing, experienced right shot D-man, and we've talked about the desperation need. The Sharks need more on that right-hand side. Easily worth a 4-year, 5-year contract of considerable value when we think about the defensive market. Somebody who could be a stable bridge player who also could overlap with the playoffs when the Sharks are there, and brings that playoff experience, especially with a gritty team like Florida. I've talked about grit, but I think that's the model that the Sharks are trying to build upon. They have the flash and that talent, and they're going to keep drafting high, it looks like, in the next couple of years. So they'll continue to add flash, but they're trying to build grit with these other pieces around, and he would certainly fit that mold. Good value for the price point, I also believe, especially with the incident and with the suspension. Another one that's intriguing as an alternative would be Henry Jokiharju, another right shot defenseman that could raise the base level talent of the Sharks blue line, and one they could certainly afford. And I think should be a reasonable contract, a guy that you can get on that 3-year type of deal, or even a 2-year deal. A lot of defensemen have been seen to take 2-year deals now, so they can have a bit of a prove it and opportunity to negotiate depending on their trade clause things with the second year. I think some other targets could be Ivan Provorov and Vladislav Gavrikov, the latter because he's on the Kings and I like poaching players from my rivals so that they can't play against me, and the former because I think the Sharks are going to be in a better state of their rebuild. And I know he's currently playing for Columbus, but they're going to be caught in this no man's land. So somebody who could be one of those good bridge player defensemen, as we've seen, like guys like Wallman leave this year, or be traded, I should say, this year for the Sharks. A guy like Provorov could be a valuable addition. And finally, not to keep poaching from the Avalanche, but when I talk about big, physical, right shot defensemen, Cory, I think you know which guy I'm pointing to. Who you also said, you said if we lose him at the end of the year, he's replaceable.
I changed my mind. I like Ryan Lindgren now. You can't have him. I want him now.
Yeah, so that's someone who, again, the Avalanche won't be able to pay everybody. So if he's available, I think he fits the mold for what Greer likes. He's been prioritizing, especially in his center and on his D-man, having larger, more physical players who can bring that intensity and animosity to the game. So certainly he's had some success in Colorado, which just makes me think he is a reasonable candidate. A couple of honorable mentions, since I focus mainly on UFA defensemen. So 2 RFAs. Would love to potentially outprice the Islanders for Noah Dobson and offer him a higher offer, and see if the Islanders are willing to
offer sheet his ass. The Blues said it works, so do it.
Yeah, so I think if we can get him just with the offer sheet and not even have to worry about trading or giving up value that way, we got the money, should go do it. instantly steps into top pairing role, or at least at a minimum top 2 pairings. I would say the same goes for Bowen Byram, but just a little bit less so because, again, playing on the left side between Cagnoni and you have Dickinson, who should be playing. Please, Lord, let Sam Dickinson have some time at the NHL level and not just be in the OHL, because he has been doing wonders up there in Ontario. I need to see him play. Both of them play on the left side. Ferraro's on the left side. Mook Madulin might be on the left side as well. So some of these guys end up eventually playing on the right, but in the Sharks prospect pool, what we already have, and especially the star power that we have, if we do draft a guy like Matthew Schaefer first overall, if we get that pick, he's on the left-hand side. A guy like Bo Byram being on the left-hand side might not be worth trying to overpay on the offer sheet, whereas Noah Dobson, I think, would be. I think it'd be harder to overpay based on what the Sharks need. So overall, that's the summary. I talked about goaltenders at points. I talked about forwards, particularly the wings in that middle 6 role. And, the right shot defenseman still remains to be, I think, the biggest need on the Sharks.
Very good, Dom. Well, thank you for your insights there. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for letting me run a little over time there
That's all right. That's all right. Well, next week, everyone, expect a wild card race check-in in both the East and the West. We ran out of time for that today, but we will definitely be checking in because there's some interesting things to ponder in terms of that. Your 3 players of the week are Jonathan Drouin, Sam Malinsky, and at number 1, Big That's right, everybody. The Big Cock Brock. Here's your fun fact for today, everyone. A real fun fact. I'm not being lazy. I got this fun fact on lock. In their history, the Avalanche have played 3 outdoor games since the NHL introduced them back in 2003 with the first Heritage Classic between the Habs and Oilers, although this is not officially the first outdoor game in NHL history. The tradition went silent for a while until the 2008 Winter Classic. It feels that the Avs have been deserving of some more grandiose outdoor action, with some of the best players on earth on their team and with some of the consistently best hockey, but I digress. In outdoor games, the Avs are actually 1-2, with their only win coming in their most recent outdoor game at Lake Tahoe against the Vegas Golden Knights, which led to one of my favorite clips of all time, Alex Pietrangelo huffing, "Oh boy," as Nathan MacKinnon barreled down the ice at full speed and scored in his face, to which he said to his teammates on the bench that there really isn't much you can do there. And he is quite right. The Avs also played against the Kings at the Air Force Academy, resulting in both a loss on the ice and a loss in time, as many fans were stuck on the road with traffic being handled horribly. But why am I talking about outdoor games? What is the relevance to any of this in regards to this episode? Well, the first outdoor game the Avalanche ever played, and the only one, unfortunately, ever played at the awesome Coors Field, was against the Detroit Red Wings on February 27th of 2016, with the Avalanche serving as the home team, obviously. The Red Wings defeated the Avs 5-3, marking the most recent time that the Red Wings were able to defeat the Avalanche on home ice, and they have not been able to do so in the last 9 seasons. To salt the wound a little further, the Red Wings have only managed to beat the Avalanche twice in that same period over a span of 16 games. Red Wings suck.
Aha. Love that. Red Wings do suck indeed.
I wanted your team to make the playoffs. Any Red Wings fans out there, they have disappointed me. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There's also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and share this podcast everywhere you can, whether that's with your mouse or your mouth. I'm Captain Avalanche Cory.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.